can I just say that if I end up crying like that, you understand it's gratitude and emotion. And it's gratitude and thankfulness, not emotion. Okay. I'm not an unhealthy person. I have colds and sniffles, and I've had a couple of bunion operations. But I'm essentially, I was a girl from the country, and I'm not by nature somebody who's very poorly. So, around about the end of August, Kate and I, no, terrible names, but I do know who they are. These people are here. Kate and I were due to do the worship at Newton Aglow on the relaunch in September. And a couple of days before that, about 4 or 5 days before that, I feel a bit off, really. They're very difficult to describe, a bit off. A bit like you over there. Just a bit off. But lethargic more than anything. And a couple of days went by, and somebody said, you better do a COVID test. I thought, ridiculous. COVID test, right? Darn it, I was positive for COVID. So there was no way I could sing with Kate in the worship there at Newton. So made some quick adjustments, and Irene and Tom went to support Kate, and I just stayed at home. So that was they'd have this on a breakfast on a Saturday morning, so I missed that. I remember that being the 4th of September. But then after that, I don't remember a whole lot of much at all. But I remember Val, because Val and I house share, if you don't know that. Val was concerned about me because I was just very sort of really not with it. And I truly don't remember a whole lot. All I remember is that I went to church on Sunday, I seemed to be fine. And then on a Monday, I have not a teas maid, I'm the teas maid. I have a little tray upstairs. I made myself a drink. I'm the teas maid, I make my own. I had a tray upstairs with my tea on, and I normally just make the drink, go back to bed and have a read. For some obscure reason, and I never will know now, I picked up this cup on the tray and started to walk to the stairs to go down the stairs with it. So maybe something in my head was saying, I'll go and join Val, because she was already down. And I only tipped it all over my stomach, red hot cup of tea. And I just remember I must have hollered, but Val rushed up to sort me out. It was all down the stairs, it was all over me. So I ended up, I didn't know, because I was like distant. I didn't know, but I actually I'd scorched my stomach. So come Monday, I don't remember anything now, so this is what Val related to me what had happened. She got really concerned about me by mid-afternoon, because I was just sitting there and I wasn't even responding, was I? You'd ask me things and I wouldn't even respond. So I think she called, it doesn't matter because I want to get to the main point here. She called the out-of-hours doctor, and they took about 4 hours to call back or something. And in the end, I just remember sometime in the middle of the evening, ambulance people being in the room, them taking me into Warrington Infirmary with congestion in the lungs. But I didn't know anything about this because I wasn't breathless, I wasn't anything really, I just wasn't kind of there. So I guess the medical people tell you you're probably not taking enough air in, so you really sort of, you're losing blood. So there I was, went into hospital, and they said, you've got pneumonia, you've got COVID pneumonia. So we're going to put you on oxygen. And they put me in ward A9, which I didn't know until somebody told me, Irene, that ward A9 in Warrington is for ladies who are mentally troubled. It wasn't me, but I think that's probably the only place where they could put me in bed. So somebody was mentally troubled, and there were 2 ladies that really, bless their hearts, they kept me up all night. I couldn't sleep in the daytime. The oxygen levels were increasing and increasing, and in the end they said, we need to get you into ICU because we're not able to give you enough oxygen. For those who've worked in as nurses, God bless you, every single one of you, the work that you do. We can't give you enough on the ward. We haven't got the equipment. We have to get you down into ICU. There's no bed. So I was in this room in this ward A9 for 3 days. They took me down there on what day would it be? I lost track.
It was Friday night.
it was the Friday, so it was 4 days then. So they took me into ICU, they gave me all the tests, you know, all the best cannulas everywhere, and not just blood pressure, injection in your tummy, so you don't get blood clots, all that kind of stuff. And I was in ICU for 7-8 days. During that time, my oxygen need had gone up to, again, it might not be much to many people, I was needing 50 litres a minute of oxygen. Now, I did a bit of research, and apparently, at 60 litre requirement, you're on a ventilator. So they put, while I was in ICU, because what's going on in my head is, why is the Son of God? You know, why am I so in need of something? I'm just not used to being this way, and it'll be overdone within no time. But I guess he was there teaching me something. He had to be, because he's looked after me all my life. So he was there in this situation, but I couldn't kind of work this one out. This was a bit odd. So they plugged me into some ice-cold oxygen to give me the 50 litres. They said to me, it's CPAP, thank you, lady. You see, you're so clever. I don't know anything about hospitals. I've been in hospital overnight once in my life. So I don't know a whole lot about it all. But anyway, CPAP is called continuous positive airway pressure. Now you know. But in this time, Val and Irene, both of them have been absolute bricks, as my mother would say. Irene was coming backwards and forwards with, what drink would you like? Could we get some different drinks? There's some fruit. And I said, could just eat a ginger biscuit. Because the food gets a bit more boring in hospital, doesn't it? I could just eat a ginger, and in comes a packet of deluxe ginger biscuits. I've now got this CPAP thing on my head, and I had to have it on, they said, all night. You need it on all night, really, if you can stand it. Now, a lot of people struggle after an hour. But I want to get out of there, don't I? And I know that God's got a ministry for me, and I don't know why I'm in this situation, so I'm going to do battle with this. And I know that from the time I went in, Val whizzed a message around, and I can't tell you how much the prayer, here I go, of all of you people, and all the church carried me through. I knew I was going to get out of it, but I knew I needed to be lifted, and I knew I could only be lifted by the prayers of the saints. And in my eyes, I could see my vision. One night, I could see just the ranks of people in like a pale gold outfits, standing like soldiers in solid rows. Where are you going, Kate? Sorry. I've got to show you the pocket, believe me, I brought one in case. They were standing in rows like battalions, and you all had your shields and your swords, and you weren't like just stood there waiting for instructions. You were in battle, and you were in prayer battle for me. And your swords were drawn, and you were stood there ready to march. Glory. And I knew that I was going to get through this. I knew. And you had the ladies and nurses in being ever so nice in ICU. You'll just keep doing it, you'll be fine. And they say that to everybody, because they've got to encourage you. While I was up there on A9, the lady in the corner passed away. And I thought this strange man had been coming backwards and forwards, and I thought, I knew no visitors were allowed, so you were on your own. Well, if you didn't know Jesus, you were on your own. But I know Jesus, and I know he's there, and he's always there for me. So this lady passed away, and then I'm in the ICU department, ICU ward, and they wheeled a lady across to go into the next compartment next to me, and she'd had a tracheotomy because she couldn't breathe, and she was much younger than me. She looked to be maybe 40. They had to reverse that a few days later because it wasn't successful. So I went up to 50 litres of oxygen. I had no idea I needed that 60 would take me onto a ventilator. But I knew that your prayers were there. And there was one song from the time I went in. Bear in mind, by this time, I couldn't breathe without the oxygen. One song, and I will never ever forget it. We sang it last month. Because it talks about breath. It says, the chorus says, all my life you have been faithful. All my life you have been so, so good. With every breath that I am able, I will sing of the goodness of God. And the second verse is, I love your voice, you've led me through the darkness. In the night, you're closer than a brother. I can't remember the exact words of it now, but you know what I mean. And I had my headset with me. I had presence of mind to put it in, so I had it plugged in. And C.C. Winans was blasting my eardrums. The song, and it was almost on repeat all the time. With every breath, it was like every step, with every breath, I will sing of the goodness of God. And I didn't get a chance to see people or speak to people much until I got through the first few days. But in that ICU, go back to the ICU, sorry, it's jumping about a bit. Anyone couldn't write it down because it just if you write it down, it's too formal. This is me speaking from my heart. I think it was the second night in ICU. It was the darkest night. There was a nurse came up to me, and it was in the middle of the night, so I got this ice cold air coming down. What happens is they put this big thing on your face, and it's like a diver's hat. It's so tight that it covers your nose and it covers your mouth, and you cannot. My cheeks were bruised with having it tight on like that. So I'm breathing in ice cold air, and within a couple of breaths you're breathing out ice cold air. And my ice cold air was freezing me around my neck, so I'd be sliding down in the bed, not aware, trying to avoid it. And they come and have to lift me up again because I need to be slightly elevated. So this particular night, at 3 in the morning, I don't know what the time it was, she came up to me, and she was at this side of me, to lift me back up in the bed, and she whispered in my ear, it wasn't imagination, and she said, you see, I've not had the vaccination, it's not something for me, okay? And she whispered in my ear, and she said, why didn't you have the job? You could have made our life so much easier. And do you realise the next step's a ventilator? And just behind, so she's here now, lifting me up in the bed. And somewhere just slightly in the distance, roughly where Val was a shadowy figure. And the nearest I could describe to it was, you've seen pictures of the Grim Reaper? It's a shadowy figure with a scythe. You know, it's a macabre, they're on Halloween with a skeleton. All I saw was a shadow of his cape, mainly head and shoulders. I couldn't see a face, it was slightly turned away, but it was like waiting. And I could see a slight shape of what would be the Sabbath. So she's saying that in my ear. Oh, I missed something out. And in this, just in this distance was this faint figure of this, waiting to take me. That's what it was like. I'm going to go back. When they took me into ICU, so bear that one in mind. When they took me into ICU, they put me some socks on. And they're called compression socks. I call them my electric socks. Okay? And they've got like little pummels in them. And they go up from your ankle all the way up to your knee. And every so often, they don't give you shocks or anything, but they move your legs around. And your legs will come apart, and then your legs will it'll relax. So I actually found it quite comforting, to be honest. And when come back to this situation now, it's really, really dark, and I cannot breathe without this thing on my face. And I need a break, so I'm like pulling it away, and then I can't breathe, put it back on again. So she says this to me, and then I know it was Jesus. The socks started to touch my calves. Like Jesus washed the feet of his disciples. It was close enough, but that's how it felt to me. He was touching my hand, reassuring me, I've got you, I've got this. And I remember know, but who are you? And I think it just faded away. And I was left with this reassuring, the best socks I've ever had, the most reassuring feeling that Jesus was there and he was never going to let me go, and however bad it was and however sick at that moment I would get better. I would sing again. He gave me the gift of being able to sing. And he hasn't finished with me. And because he's not finished with me, I'm not finished here either.
No.
And so I was never negative, but now I'm doing battle, right? You think you're going to get me on your bike. On your bike, take a sign with you, right? I belong to the King. He is my Father. You hear so many, this came to me when I was thinking about this. You hear so many people who don't know Jesus in a personal way. They go to church and they know he's somebody who should be respected, but he's like some odd kind of person in history. But Jesus was. God's around. But whenever people are in trouble, or something shocks them, or something dramatic happens, they go, oh my God. Don't you hear it? Oh no, or OMG, shorten it, because it's easier to say, OMG. Or you say, oh God, do you know what I can say? Oh Father.
Yeah.
Because he's not God. Well, yes, of course he's God. He's omnipotent, but he's personal.
Yeah.
He's my Father.
Yes.
He's my friend.
Yes.
He's my brother.
Yes.
He's Jesus. He came to give me life. And he wasn't about to take it away. Because he wasn't done with me. So from the time, I think I've got a grip now. So slowly over the hours, it wasn't days, over the hours, that oxygen level at 50, and I wasn't out of bed, I couldn't get out of bed. Commode, and all that, hated all that, and the nurse couldn't have to deal with you, oh dear. But anyway, bless them, that's why I love them so much. And all that, oh dear, I couldn't be a nurse, never in a million years. Right, but after a couple of days, I am sitting in the chair. I'm still on oxygen. Irene, stop laughing. I'm still on oxygen, but I'm now down to like 35, 30. By the end of the week, I think you're well enough now to go on to an ordinary ward. I was down to 5 litres of oxygen a minute. I still had this thing going up my nose during the day, but that icy thing was taken away after about 5 days. Val, bless her, had said, Irene, because Val had got, well, because we shared a house together, she couldn't come anywhere near the hospital. Irene did, so Val would give things to Irene, and Irene was set off to ICU. Do you know where ICU is from the car park? Poor Irene, on foot, the pair of them, and Val got me this lovely thing to put around my neck to keep me warm. So I want to say to you both, bless you, thank you so much for all you did to lift me and get me through. But two funny things were, I got up onto the ward, and this wasn't funny, this was wonderful. I got up onto the ward, A7, not A9, A7. And Irene was going, oh, are you going out to ICU now? I kept in touch with everybody, didn't I? Or as much as I possibly could, kept firing messages across. Positive. Irene said, oh, you're going off now then? And I said, yeah, I'm going up in this A7. And she came back with, oh, it'll be, you're taking Jean's bed. She's going home today. I thought, how does she know Jean, whoever Jean is going home and I'm going up and pitching her bed on A7? Well, when I got up there, Jean hadn't left. She was waiting to go home. Jane, I didn't get a chance to say much to her, but she was late going, so I did get some few minutes. Jane only went to Jean Foster's church in Orford. How wonderful, that's how Irene knew. But to me it was like, you go through all that flatness, now you're coming up into the light, you're only on 5 litres, now we take you back up on the ward, and here's a Christian that you can can talk to now you're there. And the only other person in the ward was a lady who went to an independent Methodist. And I said, would you mind if I play this music? I said, do you like Christian music? She said, oh yes I do. And she had a terrible cough, awful. And I kept playing her The Goodness of God. Ceasing with I will with every breath, and we started to sing it together. I had a bit of a squeaky voice, but hey, I was up on the ordinary ward. One of the things that when I was getting better, and I was still in ICU waiting for a bed, waiting for June's bed, was there was an Aglow board meeting, and I was going to miss it, and I was feeling quite a bit better, and you could get Zoom if on your phone. You get Zoom, so we had a Zoom board meeting, and I was in ICU. Yeah. Right, this was at, what time would it be, 9 o'clock to 10 o'clock or something like that at night, right? I was in ICU, and the night shift had changed over, and they stood there doing handover, and I was on this Zoom for 2 hours. In ICU. How about that? So, when I got home, I was home on the Monday, the 20th or something like that. I can't remember a whole lot really, but I just remember that I couldn't get upstairs. 1 step, 2 step, and I was out of breath, right? I never was somebody to run upstairs, but now I go upstairs, I don't even think that I've got a shortage of breath. Isn't that wonderful? Yes. Isn't God wonderful? Yes. So I've got 2 scriptures to give to you. 2 scriptures that are within my testimony. And I know I've taken far more than 8 minutes. I'm so sorry. This was the first one, John 11, verse 4. It's kind of out of context because it's talking about Lazarus being raised from the dead. Well, I wasn't dead, but I was on my way, or could have been on my way without Jesus. Okay. The Amplified, John 11, verse 4 says, when Jesus received the message, he said, "This sickness is not to end in death, but on the contrary, it is to honour God and to promote his glory, that the Son of God may be glorified through it." And there's loads I could tell you more. There's a Filipino nurse came up to me. I'm singing it, oh, the goodness of God. And she finishes the verse off. And she's got a mask on. And she stood in front of me, and she comes from a Filipino church, she's born again Christian. She prayed for me, and that was just before I left ICU. So, I mean, it's just the goodness of God. It was all the way through it. And my second verse, this is Matthew 10, verse 27, from the Jewish Bible. Yes, they have the New Testament in the Jewish Bible. Yeah. What I tell you in the darkness, speak in the light. And what you hear whispered in the ear, not her, what Jesus did, okay? And what you hear whispered in the ear, proclaim it on the housetops. That's my testimony. God, the goodness of God, with every breath, I will sing of the goodness of God.
Thank you, Pauline, and thank you, Lord.
23 minutes.
Thank you, Father, for keeping our beautiful sister. And we just decided we would not listen in our hearts to a bad report, no matter what the enemy was trying to say to us, because we could see, couldn't bring that. But we had to take captive those thoughts and pray and pray and pray and believe. We're going to have my singing part of that. Hallelujah. So we really do thank the Lord for what he's done for Pauline. Through that furnace, the fiery furnace, she saw Jesus in the middle of the furnace. Amen. And she's come out a different person. We all do when we go through these things and you wonder what's happening to yourself. And it's great because we all are being changed from glory to glory. Amen.